All right. Well, thank you
Thank you,
everybody for
Tom.
joining us today. We're real excited to have you here. Uh, my name is Kate Fisher. We're going to introduce ourselves here in just a minute as the Oracle team, but we're real excited to come and to talk to you about how, I know that this is my fifth Out and Equal Summit, the fifth year attending. And one of the things that I've always experienced attending the summit is listening to different workshops that talk about how we engage senior leaders. And it's always been something that I, and along with our Open, the Oracle Pride Employee Network team here, that we've been talking about how could we do that within our company and within Oracle. And we have been engaging on a project to do that. And so today, what we would like to do is talk to you about how we've been able to engage our senior leadership and many of our senior executives within Oracle to really be part of what we have termed the Belonging Campaign. So today what we're going to do is talk to you about what the Belonging Campaign is all about. We're actually going to present the campaign to you and the presentation that we present to our executives. And then we will talk about how we went about engaging and approaching our executives and what the results of that have been. And then we also talk about some lessons that we've learned along the way that we would like to pass on that might be helpful for you if you are also seeking to do some kind of similar engagement within your company. So with that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Kate Fisher. I am a enterprise account manager. I sell cloud infrastructure with Oracle. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. And I've been very lucky. A few years ago, I went through a gender transition here at Oracle. And I was very lucky to, in a number of levels. One was certainly Oracle was able to provide the benefits that I needed at the right time that helped to fund a lot of my gender transition activities. But more importantly, I've been very lucky in the support that I've received from my direct manager, from my managers above that. When I went through my transition, I was very lucky because my manager and all the way up to my executive vice president personally reached out to me, and I didn't personally know most of these people. And they said to me that they were supportive of what I was going through, and that if there was any discrimination or anyone that gave me a hard time, to call them directly. And so I've been very lucky to feel that kind of support in this company. Cheryl?
My name is Paul Boyd, and I am Vice President of Design, Documentation Training, and Incubation, which is this weird other little group that I adore, for Oracle Health Sciences. I went to Out and Equal for the first time last year, and this is my first year acting as the global executive sponsor for Open. It's been an enormous honor. I've learned so much, and I couldn't be partnered with more intelligent, savvy, passionate people than the other three people on the panelists. I also have been very lucky. Throughout my career, I have had bosses who have been 100% accepting of the fact that I'm a gay man. In fact, this weekend I'll be getting married, and my team sent me a surprise celebration package. My boss has been talking about it with my colleagues. My colleagues have been sending me messages. It's been nothing but support and warmth. And as a result of that support and warmth and air cover, I've been able to, I believe, do my job better, but also just feel really safe. And so as a result, I feel I've been very lucky throughout my career.
And hi, I'm Cheryl Lander. So my day job is as a senior director for release management for the CX Verticals team. My gay job is board co-chair along with Kate for Open, our Pride Employee Network at Oracle. I have also been extremely lucky with my management. Not only have they supported me, but my current manager has asked me to create a diversity and inclusion initiative in his team. And I think the funniest thing that happened to me in terms of support was that one of my managers really needed some reverse mentoring when he asked me, so this work that you're involved with, does this have to do with affirmative action? Is that all it is? So having the opportunity to do reverse mentoring was very amazing. And, you know, again, I feel very lucky to be working in a supportive Oracle environment. And Paula?
Hello, Thanks. And hi, I'm Paula Getz. I'm a vice president in global risk management at Oracle, and I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I've been fortunate to be in open leadership in various roles for the last 5 years at Oracle. And when I first became co-chair, I was new to advocating for LGBTQ rights, especially in corporate America. But when I first became co-chair, I was not prepared at all to come, and it was really, you have to come out to executives when you advocate. And I started coming out to executives I didn't know. The ones I did come out to for my job were very supportive. But now I was going to go meet new executives that I'd never met, had no relationship with them, and I needed to come out and tell my story to advocate for open. So I was lucky that I didn't experience any discrimination that I know of, but I never knew if they were just being nice to me or they were holding their tongue till I was done with my pitch. I always just assumed that they were being nice. But I'll tell you, that's why I like this campaign, because it's a way to make that assumption real. We really find out where executives sit on it. And so, so that's my intro. So I've been lucky that way too. So now we're gonna show you some of the output from the Belonging Project. I'll hand it over to Paul.
Hopefully this works over 400 people. Let's see how it goes.
I, Paul Boyd, believe in fairness.
I believe that diversity enriches organizations.
I believe my team will succeed if it reflects the world around us.
I believe people should be judged by the goodness of their deeds, the quality of their work,
and the positive, lasting impressions they leave on our co-workers and customers.
I believe that all people should feel safe and thrive in their workplace.
I value the contribution of everyone, regardless of whom they love and how they identify their gender.
To the open community, I see you.
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 I embrace you.
To the open community, I see you and you belong in my organization.
So that's the output of this project, the Belonging Project. And it still gets me every time. I've watched that a couple times and I still get tears every time. Those are some of the top executives at Oracle. And we'll get to how that works and how we got those videos in a minute. But let me start with why we did this. So open, that's the ERG for Oracle, Oracle Pride and Employee Network for LGBTQ and allies. We didn't start really growing until we had a few executives. We had the courage to start asking them to come to our annual Pride luncheons and publicly support us that way. Their support as allies, we knew was so powerful, and it started to be like miracle grow for our membership. It gave us legitimacy. But it seemed that the only time we engaged executives were especially for specific events, especially in June for Pride, and for funding, of course. And it took a ton of effort to engage them every time. It's like we were constantly looking, how many times did we ask this executive for funding? Okay, we've gone to them too many times. Let's go to another executive. And these guys are very busy, right? They're busy running the company. And so we felt like there was a ton of effort interrupting them to get funding. So, and then I started going to Executive Forum, and I've been to Executive Forum out in Equal 4 or 5 times. And I started to hear about these executive programs that other companies were doing. The one specifically that I talked a lot to and learned a lot from was David Thornton at Bank of America. They had a very active executive program. So we knew that we needed to move from a transactional relationship with our executives to a more strategic one, especially if we wanted to grow the open across the world. And we are the biggest global ERG at Oracle. And so if we could make funding easier, that was important. But what was more important for our membership was that if we could grow our executive allies, then we could materialize what it would feel like for the workplace to be a safe place. And because we're a global ERG, we know that there's places where our ERG in some countries across the world is the safe place. At work is the only place they can be safe right now. So that's when it became really important. So I'll hand it to Cheryl.
There's a brief poll we would like to ask people to engage in here, and that is, how engaged are your executives in your ERG or BRG? And just to remind you, I believe you have to go back to the pathable system. Someone correct me if that's not correct.
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 Yeah.
Correct.
All right. So we thought we would just show you the pitch slides that we went with. We start with a similar message that we started this talk with, how lucky we have been, and how that helps us do our job. And then we try to contrast that with the notion of, imagine we're the opposite. Imagine a person coming in for a job interview, and you were perceived in that role as being judged, perhaps being laughed at, people talking about you or just not using the right language or not understanding you. And how different would the pay be at that company relative to another company where you feel like you fit right in? And that's a weird but perhaps interesting way to sort of put a sense of dollars around the importance of diversity in a single hire, never mind the really overarching thing. And so the idea being that by communicating you belong here, you're okay here, you're safe here, it really has an impact on hiring. We talk a little, then we go and talk a little bit about open. Again, that's our ERG's name, and that we're global. We represent, in some ways, one of Oracle's largest ERGs because we are so intersectional. And then we talk a little bit about how we're supporting your organization today, even if you may not know it. And here are our goals, and certainly those goals align to what your goals are for an organization. We then start talking about the Belonging Campaign itself. And the idea is that it trying to address the challenge of retention, recruitment, and certainly the promotion of the best talent that's in the market that might be in your organization today, but perhaps overlooked. Or perhaps are not contributing to their fullest because they feel not safe. We want to sort of inspire connectedness and true perspective taking, which we believe is important for a healthy team, an innovative team, and the ability to maximize people's potentials to contribute. And certainly, you know, I tell a story about when I went to visit a customer as a vendor, and they had pride flags all over the place. And how as a vendor, never mind a customer, but a vendor, I felt so comfortable. In the meeting room, someone referred to, a man referred to his husband, and it was just so natural, and it made me really think, wow, this place has got it figured out. And then I started to talk about following the middle. And here's the notion that upper leadership understands often that diversity matters, that a lot of us have taken training courses on the value of it, but then the experience at the individual contributor level may not match what the upper level person is thinking, or at least saying. And so it's really trying to thaw the middle for more diverse recruiting, more diverse promotions, and certainly more diverse discussions, having conversations in the team that enable and facilitate perspective taking that we think is so important. So by really driving this program, who we're communicating to is certainly the individual contributor, but also the managers that sit in between those VPs and the ICs. Then we go into some research. We're quick to say this is not our research. This is Harvard Business Review. This is well-conducted research that suggests that If you want to drive up innovation, the LGBTQ plus inclusive companies tend to show more innovative behaviors. Certainly retaining top talent, big deal, and then loyalty, not only in fact from our employee base, but from our customers. And then we have this great quote that came from an Oracle employee that sort of makes that very visceral connection. You sort of feel the humanity in that quote. I'm an ally and I do this in support of my child who is an avid activist for human rights and identifies as bisexual and non-binary. And that's taught me so much about who they are. My love for this young person is unconditional. We fly the ally flag in our window at home. And that this person signed up to be an ally in such a powerful way connects this sort of academic intellectual research with a more visceral sense. And then we bring up the quote that you heard on the video, and I read it to them and I say, I think it's important that you just hear it. I, Paul Boyd, believe in fairness. I believe that diversity enriches organizations. I believe my team will succeed if it reflects the world around us. I believe that people should be judged by the goodness of their deeds and the quality of their work, and the positive lasting impressions they leave on their coworkers and our customers. I believe that all people should feel safe and thrive in their place of work. I value the contribution of everyone, regardless of whom they love or how they identify their gender. To the open community, I see you and you belong in my organization. And then you'll see Happy Pride there at the bottom, and that's because we kicked this off as part of our virtual round the world Pride celebration. We then, and this is an important component, engage in this sort of building level of support 1 through 5. The easiest thing is to virtually sign this commitment to belonging and you're done. But then, we have different levels to go through. We can add a badge that we have on our internal repository directory of people that you can add that badge. You can support one of our events. Perhaps you want to speak about us at an all hands or read out your commitment to belonging, or maybe send an email to your organization. And then 5 was meet with us once or twice a year, depending on the size of your organization, to talk about LGBTQ plus issues. And then deputize 2 managers on your staff to help you with this. And that was an important thing we wanted to add because we didn't want a VP to move on to another organization and then we'd have to start over with that organization. So if we had someone deputized, it built some stickiness, if you will. So we wanted to start with 5 VPs for Pride. And then we would say, this is the initial program, we're gonna go off and sign them up. And what we found was it took off. VPs emailed me separately and said, Paul, why did you send this to this VP and not to me? I want to sign up for this. And we ended up with somewhere in the number of 15 to 20 for Pride. And our conversion rate was approaching 90%. The 10% didn't say no, they just didn't reply. So it might be that our conversion rate is actually higher, they just didn't get to it. Some of the actionable things is at your next all hands, we can come and talk for you. You can talk, we'll help you with the words. Certainly read your belonging commitment on Zoom or on the video, or we can give you a template that you can send out to your organization that certainly you can adapt in any way you see fit, but we'll give you a starting point. So, next poll question. Do you currently have an active initiative to engage executives in your ERG or BRG?
Yep.
And Paul, we have, oh, you got it? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, while we're waiting, the first poll, the one about what's your level of executives engaged. So we are talking to an educated audience here. We could definitely share best practices because over 30% very engaged, 27% engaged, 21% moderately, executives were moderately engaged in the ERG, 19% sporadically, and only 3% not engaged at all. So we look forward to hearing some best practices here.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Cheryl.
And so being the project manager on this team of 4, I get to talk about the list because every project has to have a list, right? So in addition to the pitch deck, we created a list of the executives that we wanted to approach. And Oracle is a huge company, as you probably know. And so we have a very long list. We started with our management chain, the people that, we talked about earlier who support us. We reached out to our community to find out who from their management chain was supportive. We started there. Then, we looked at people that have done funding or who've attended our events, and there's some overlap there. And then we also looked at other key stakeholders that none of us had relationships with, but key stakeholders that we wanted on this list because of their influence within Oracle. Those that are close to our, CEO and board and other people that can actually have influence on the decisions that are made at the upper level. Then we also added information about what their level of engagement with Open has been, who they have relationships with, so that we can understand who, in addition to the 4 of us, can go do this pitch with them, because we need a pyramid model of this pitch to get it out to a wider set of executives. Then we categorized them. Are they advocates? Are they supportive? Or are they neutral? Where are they now, and where do we want them to be? Knowing that some of them who are neutral, we may need to do some more education with them. Then once we had the pitch deck and this list, we started with the ones that we felt most comfortable with, as Paul mentioned, the ones that, we targeted for our initial pilot. And as you can tell also from the slide that Paul showed about the levels, Oracle is a very competitive environment. And so having those levels also helped us, in the pitch by saying, oh, so-and-so is a level 5. You might want to be a level 5. And maybe we didn't say it quite that explicitly, but, we're letting people know that there is, a little bit of competition in this program as well.
Great. And what we were surprised by is the level of engagement really exceeded our expectations. As Cheryl just described, we started with kind of a list of people that we already knew, people that we knew that were safe. And part of that was we wanted to get some feedback. We wanted to kind of understand, hey, is this resonating? Does this make sense? How would you might change the way that we're doing this pitch? And we got some really great feedback from that, but it also created a synergy that we didn't expect. And suddenly we found ourselves presenting this to many more of our senior leaders and some other execs that very quickly, in a very quick time frame, because they really loved the engagement of this. And part of it was we realized that we were able to give them something to do. We were able to kind of, as you saw in the presentation, lots of people are saying in the chat, just how great it was in the levels that we were able to do that. And linking together, not just, yes, I care about it, but to give them actually something practical to do, I think was the true genius behind what we were able to put here together in the Belonging campaign. Paula?
Yep. What we also learned was that executives, and as Kate said, and all of us have talked about the levels of support, it gave them definable activities that they could do, because they have this level of anxiety and they wanted to support us, but one, they didn't know how, besides giving money. In fact, Paul might have mentioned, but one of the most senior execs we've presented to, we went and presented this whole pitch, and he, at the end of it, he said, "You haven't asked me for money yet." And because he was so used to the only conversation we had with him was, we need you to fund this event, or can you give us scholarships to attend out in Equal Summit? And so one, they didn't know how to support us. And so the definable activities was great. And they also were anxious about making a mistake. So, and that's been really, we were surprised at how much that was a barrier to entry. Because a lot of them said, once we commit to support you and I go out and speak to people and support, I don't want to screw up the alphabet, and so in these conversations, we got to have a whole conversation about what the LGBTQ meant and how they could get comfortable with talking about it, because they were a little afraid to screw up that alphabet. And they also we could engage them into these conversations. And again, it was kind of a safe space that we created so they could ask us all kinds of questions and we could educate them. And so it became kind of a reverse mentoring type opportunity. So, and we didn't expect that at all. And it's been a huge benefit. Cheryl, back to the project management of it all.
Yes.
Yeah,
How
no
did I
kidding.
manage to get all these slides? It just dawned on me now as we're doing this. Natural fit. Anyway, so we have to also be ready to operationalize the program. And I think this kind of caught us off guard given the high level of engagement that we got initially. So what we did is we created a small task force, 3 people, one who's an executive admin who knows how to navigate executives' calendars, and then one who's leading the effort and really getting on executives' calendars to get the video recording done. Because we figured that's a really great way to start. We get 15 minutes with them. We created a how-to document for creating great videos. And now we've started to build a library of recordings. And as you could tell from the video that we showed you earlier, we're now able to do some compilations and really get a wider group of people speaking to the attestation. Long term, this group that we've pulled together will help us give biannual updates, do periodic meetings with the VPs and SVPs and EVPs, and we're also looking at participating in their D&I initiatives, and then we'll have basically a list of potential speakers that we can bring into our event. So, we're not just stopping with the attestation or even the 5 items that we have as the levels. We really want to, see where we can take this and in giving these executives an opportunity to engage.
Yep.
And the other thing that we really thought through as we started putting the program together was the global implications. We are a global ERG, and we have always been really aware that much of the materials that we put together in even just some of the activities in the programming that they do with Open, Cheryl and I lead our monthly community calls, and we're always trying to be really careful about how does this translate into JPAC? How does this translate into Europe? How does this translate into Latin America? How does this translate into India? And so we really tried to think through in this program those things too, and particularly the attestation. The words were chosen very carefully. But at the end of the day, we also were not sure exactly how that was going to be taken. So getting the feedback from executives from around the world has also been really valuable to us and very important. The other thing that we also recognize is that some of our executives that are working in countries that, there's certain laws that are preventing them from showing support for the LGBTQ community. It can be very dangerous, like personally dangerous for them to show this kind of support. So we've also recognized that, and we're working on trying to find ways to help them to express that support that also, protects them both legally and personally in those countries.
Yep.
So in the chat, if you wanted to write down a very brief description of a program, an activity that you've done that engaged your executives in a way that perhaps caught you off guard in terms of how successful it was, or just generally speaking, it worked well, we can then, drive a conversation around that. And while you're doing that, we're certainly opening it up to Q&A, and we'll try our best to answer some of the questions.
There's already been quite a few questions in the chat.
Perfect.
There is a lot of really great questions. Yeah. This is a really great question that we can answer as a panel. So I've been keeping track of the questions over here. So how do we get the bandwidth with executives in relation to all the other diversity groups that are also maybe asking and pressuring our executives for similar things? And how do we keep the challenge on the LGBTQ issues? And maybe we could also address how we partner with some of our other groups and how we've talked them through and thought that.
Well, so I can speak to that one. I mean, when we went to my SVP, Steve Miranda, we basically, the entry point was, we know you've attended our events. It hasn't been, particularly, he's never spoken or never been engaged at our event, but he, obviously was supportive enough to attend the event. So that was kind of, an entree. Plus, I think, he knows who from his organization are involved in our ERGs. And it so happens that there are more people from Open who are involved, from his organization. So I think that was another entry point for us with him as well. And so I think, using the personal connections that you have and the stories that you have with those people, I think that's important.
I might add on to that. I agree 100%, Cheryl. I think what I might add on is we were very clear that the slide deck had to be short. We can do this pitch in 20 minutes with 10 minutes for other discussion, because there's always been other discussion. And then the video does not take long to do at all. So, it's a quick interaction. And so that's helped a lot as well, to make it something that they can just sort of not read this thing. They now have the artifact of the video, and we can do compilations with it. And as we were saying, we now have them in our directory of VPs, where when we do need to find some funding, we have a list of friendly VPs to go off and get specific requests from.
Yep. There was another.
I thought I was doing the question part. I'll keep going. This is a great question that we can answer fairly quickly, because I think it exposes a little bit about the challenge that we've had at Oracle is, do we do anything different for out LGBTQ executives and leaders? And how do we deal with them differently?
We make them be leaders.
How do we utilize that group?
Yeah, we make them be leaders and open.
Yeah, so you're looking at both of them.
There's one more, and she's a board emeritus too. So,
yeah. So the point there is that there's a big challenge in Oracle, is we don't have a lot of out executives to pull from. So that has always been a challenge, which is part of why the Belong campaign has been really important to us. How about could we address maybe for smaller organizations? Yeah. We're kind of a big multinational. There's a great question here about smaller organizations. And how do we, someone posted that they don't necessarily have an ERG put together. How might a smaller organization go about approaching and engaging senior leaders to do something similar to this?
Yep, I'll take that one to begin with, because I was glad you were picking that question. That was the one I was going to jump in. So we used to be a small, we're in a big company, but when we started 5 years ago, Open was not a big ERG at all. And it was actually in what they call an affinity group. So the first thing we worked on, and I'd say for any org, whether you're small or big, you have to have the business case. And if you notice in the slides, what second or third slide that is, Paul, maybe you can go back to that. We worked hard, and we continue to work hard. And it's something that I've benefited from Expo several times, is getting the business case, because that is going to be, and it's actually the one with the bars. Well, yeah, that's part of it, the one on the right. And then we said, if we want to compete for talent, Oracle's getting into we are a big player in the cloud. It is important that we are one of the, that we're able to compete for talent out in the marketplace. And we're very focused on retaining our key employees. So, and it increased our positive external branding. And then also the slide with the bar charts around how people buy from companies now that that show diversity and show compliance to it. And that one, yeah. So we really worked, and we continue. And I think that's where the hub that Out and Equal is now putting out will help a lot, because I think we all need to share our business case so that we can help everybody. Because we have to keep it relevant, we have to keep it up to date, and we always have to continue to refresh this. So.
And if I could just add on, I think it's true that Oracle has some strengths and some weaknesses given its size when it comes to this. At some level, these business values on the right-hand side apply to any sized organization. Smaller companies are definitely competing with the same companies that we're competing for talent, for example. And when you have someone who's great, the last thing you want them to do is to leave. And all of these things, it applies, I think, just as well to a larger organization as it does a smaller organization.
So Paul, there's several questions just around what was our ask. Some people are maybe asking us to go back to that portion of the belonging campaign. What was our ask of senior leaders, and what resonated the best with the leaders that we've approached so far?
Well, let me go to that slide. And I'll tell you, the thing that, there were a couple of things that really struck me. One was, thank you, because I just feel like I need to do something. The world is quite polarized today. And so being able to use the position that I've finally gotten to in my career to help other people, particularly given everything that's happening in the world today, was something that was explicitly said. Just tell me what I should do. Just give me something I can do. And that was super powerful. I think the other thing that we realized is there isn't one VP who didn't go to 5. And so what that tells me,
said, I want to do 5+, remember, Jonathan? Yeah. I want to do 5+.
Exactly. What that says to us is we set the bar a little too low. And we should have gone 6, 7, 8, 9. And so we're starting to think about that. One of the ideas we're starting to sort of bat around is, would one of these VPs be willing to be a mentor for someone in the LGBTQ, open community? And so let's build that up a bit more, because there's more room. That we haven't hit the ceiling yet. And once we know where the ceiling is, then we can build some spots in between. So I think these will continue to evolve. We've given ourselves that option, in that, as we said, they're now into this directory where when we need somebody, if we want to start a mentoring program, we have now 20 VPs to go to. I also say 20 VPs, but we sort of stopped because we were trying to catch up on the operationalization of this program. Now that we have this task force in place, we're now able to kind of continue going to recruit. So that number I expect to grow significantly over the next year.
Yeah, and earlier I had talked about diversity initiatives within some of the groups within Oracle. And when we talked to Steve Miranda, again, my SVP, he mentioned that he didn't have that kind of an initiative, but was eager to look into what that would look like. And from my perspective, and I think his management team would agree, I mean, where we can serve as a resource is, in terms of software development, are we building in things that, are making, are building in inclusivity into our products, right? And that's where, I think some of the reverse mentoring or mentoring of, the product teams that are doing design, to pull the ERGs, not just doesn't apply to us. I mean, we have a disability ERG, I think it applies there as well. And, name the ERG, I think it can apply to, but, using us as a resource through the diversity initiatives that are happening in each of these business units.
So let me add one thing before I go to the next question, because it goes to the previous question as well. And that I think one of the things that the 4 of us talked about as we put together the belonging campaign is to use, I'm going to use it in my language. We have a superpower as ERG and as ERG leaders, right? And that, to me, that superpower is empathy. We understand how to think, how others, what's important to others. And so as we put this together, we really thought through Oracle's culture and what is important to our senior leaders and how do we get their attention. And so we tried to speak directly to them, so that's giving them certain things to do. But if you look at the way we did this, we also made it very competitive. Oracle's super competitive. Our execs love to compete against each other. you know, as a salesperson, I compete more with people, with other sales teams in Oracle than I do with our competitors. It's kind of crazy. So we tried to focus on some things like that. So as we thought about addressing them, and as you think about addressing your senior leaders and all of that, think about what's really important to them. Is it retaining talent? Is it recruiting diversity? Is it having competition? Is it, you know, what are the bottom lines that they're looking at? And so as you put together a similar program, think it through in those terms.
Yeah.
Paul, there's two really great questions that I want to talk about. Let's start with this one, is who presents this to the executives, and how did we think through that? And like, and in terms of, you know, is it one of us? Is it others within Open? Is it, how did we talk through that? Because I think that's a really important, relevant question to answer.
So that's also evolving. It's a great question. It started with it being sort of one of the four of us. The idea being that it was there, in fact, at first it was really VP to VP, and because that would feel safe. But quickly, you know, we're starting to move away from that because there are a lot of VPs at Oracle. And so we want to scale this program out now. And so, you know, this crew, that the panelists that are in this meeting are certainly primed, and everybody goes and do that, and then we'll start to grow that further out. The thing that we wanted to really make sure that we're tight on is this notion, the message. The message has to be, we're helping you already, and so help us help you, and let's do it in, and Kate's point was spot on, let's do it in a way that matters to you. And so as we started, we wanted it to be something that would be even and safe and so forth and so on. Now that we're getting a bit more momentum, we have better, the video itself is a sales tool, right? To engage in that competitiveness that Kate was talking about. And so I think we'll be able to get to the point where we can sort of roll that out and have any member of Open go to their VP. Or maybe another VP that they know, that sort of thing. So we're definitely getting to the stage now where we've got the message in, we've got the slide deck, you know, we want to tweak it here and there. We've got the task force to follow in behind the sales pitch, if you will. And now we're about ready to kind of go at scale. And I think that's the part that we're getting to.
Paul, there's also someone, it kind of brought up, can we speak to maybe like, did titles make a difference? Or roles within the company to get the attention of some of the executives? Like, you know, like your title as an executive sponsor for Open, maybe those titles, that's what I'm getting at. And maybe also your title in your job function.
It's a great question. It's actually, honestly, it's hard to know. We started off, as we said, with friendly VPs, and these are people that I work with every day, or Paula works with, and that sort of thing. And so I had, you know, relatively good relationships. In fact, in that case, we started with the safest, the ones I knew I had a good relationship with, and that was a good way to sort of test it. But over time, we were going further and further outside of our network. With Steve Miranda, who Cheryl's mentioned a couple of times, being the furthest outside that level, that onion level. Steve Miranda is a big deal because he probably has about 20,000 people reporting to his organization. So he's a big deal within Oracle, and that was certainly a big step. That said, during the meeting, you know, I'm going to turn this over to Kate and Cheryl. I felt like he was equally interested in hearing the perspectives of everybody that was in that call. And so maybe it helped because, you know, we have the right letters behind some of our names to get the meeting. That's certainly possible. But I don't know that I perceived necessarily that had the message come from somebody without the letters B and P behind them, that somehow it wouldn't have worked. But let me turn that back over to Cheryl and Kate. What do you think about that? It's a great question.
Well, I think we'll find out when we start to scale. You know, I think that's going to be interesting, because I mean, I think if we have somebody whose work is highly respected within an organization, getting an audience with their VP should be relatively easy. but again, I think we'll see how that works out once we scale.
So let's see, Paula, maybe this is a great question for all three of you. Is lots of questions about how do we thaw that frozen middle, and in particular, what have we seen in terms of the higher up we've gone in that organization? How have they been able to trickle that down through that frozen middle to really affect change, so that it's not just us here and we still don't have the work being done here. So, what can we talk about that in that perspective?
Yeah. Yes, so I'll start that one. I think one, it helps to have, I'll say every organization is different. Sometimes it helps to go to the top and start there. Like with Steve Miranda, he invited some of his staff to it. So that'll help us thaw the frozen middle in that organization. Other times it helps to go from the frozen middle up, or get some very good allies and employees that are in open. Like with the way we started our India chapter, I'll go to that, is we had to have employees stand up in India before we tried to go to the head of HR and the head of India, and they wouldn't talk to us, right? And so once they knew employees in their group cared about it and they wanted to stand up, then that's how we thawed the frozen middle and then got to the top and started it. So it'd be the same thing here with the strategy here. Sometimes it's going through employees willing to stand up and have a voice. Other times you have to get to the top before anyone will even talk to you. So I think it's organization dependent.
Paul, if you could go to that frozen middle slide, some folks are asking to see that again.
Yeah, and then I also want to say there was one that's related to this, one question in there about Latin America. And I just want to say we have had huge success in Latin America. So if you want to get a hold of one of us, we will make sure we connect you with our open leaders in Latin America, Brazil especially. We've had, because absolutely we wondered about that same issue of it being, there being a lot more resistance there. We have not anticipated that, but we do have good executive support there. So, and
good D&I support there.
I'm sorry, good D&I support too. Yes.
And marketing, and I mean, I think if the number is in my head correctly, that grew by 437% last year in terms of membership. I mean, it was an enormous success.
Yeah.
People are still asking about the slides. We'll post a PDF of the slides on the file section in Passable after the talk. So just come back and you'll be able to download those. Give me an hour or so to get them ready. We'll get them up there. There's a question here about how we maybe thought about, and I think we can talk about how we thought this through, as partnering with other ERGs within our organization, because Oracle does have several other ERGs.
Yeah. So you want me to start that one, Paul? So when we first started going out to executives, they said, oh, I want to sign this, but I want to sign it for all the ERGs, not just open. And Paul had a genius strategy. I will brag on him for a minute because he doesn't like to be bragged about. But his strategy was start it during Pride Month, so that because we knew if we didn't get it going, and we wanted to broaden it, it may slow it down, and then it would have to be completely through our D&I, diversity inclusion, and through all the ERGs. So we thought it might slow the momentum, and if we could get it going, then it would be much easier to broaden it after that. And that's what we've talked about to executives. It doesn't mean that you're just supporting open and you don't support the others. And now I know that Hola, our Hispanic ERG, our Latinx ERG, they are now starting a leadership program. I just gave them the slides actually 2 days ago. Paul didn't even know that. And they're starting to ask about how can they put their executive engagement program together. So
it's a really insightful question. Certainly, when I was presenting these slides within our organization in health sciences, I would be very explicit. Right now, I have my open hat on, and I'm here representing the LGBTQ plus ERG. But if I were to take this hat off and put on my health sciences hat, I would say that this should be a much broader program. and so each VP has to figure that out, I think, at this stage, at the early stage, I should say. But Paula said it beautifully, you know, that the vision for this is certainly to be much more intersectional than it is currently.
Yeah. Paul, someone asked if we could see the overview slide again for the campaign. And the next set of questions maybe is, and I think we can talk about as I talked about in our volunteer workshop, the story that we find ourselves in the global pandemic. There's some questions specifically to like manufacturing and operations, but let me relate that also to another question that was asked about smaller locations and how we might reach out and work with some of our smaller locations. And the reason why I brought up the story we find ourselves in is I'm going to partially answer this and let you kind of jump on this, Paul, is that I think that as we rolled this out, we were just kind of entering into that. We've been working on this for quite a while, but as we started to roll it out as the pandemic and quarantines, and we all started doing virtual stuff. And I think that helped us to get access to executives faster. So Paul, maybe speak to that and speak about how just all of that kind of maybe it's created a little bit of synergy for us too.
In the context of COVID, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah. So
just having access, you know, executives are maybe more accessible because we can get to them virtually than traveling to where they're at, and people are located all over the world, that kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, certainly Oracle has always had pretty powerful distance collaboration tools. You know, we have offices all over the place, and so that existed. I do think, though, that the COVID, you know, lockdown phase probably has had an effect in that. Certainly, we mentioned the political world in which we find ourselves, but not all of these VPs live in the US, and so this is a global response thus far. Perhaps, and you know, I don't know this, but perhaps, you know, in the time when we're all sort of locked in our homes, particularly when we started this program, the need for connection to other people was sort of an underpinning to this. Where, you know, I just want my team to be taken care of, and I don't get to see people as much as I used to, and I value people. You know, maybe there was an influence around that as well. Thus far, we've not seen any sort of slowdown that we didn't drive. So far, the reactions have still continued to be very positive. We are, now that the task force is operationalized, it was an interesting test because would people continue to follow through making these videos for us? And they've been coming in at a great pace. So that sort of suggests to me that, you know, the message was that in those initial meetings was authentic and it's sticky. They're continuing today, and so I think that's a great sign. But yeah, it's a great question. It's hard to know to what extent COVID and being locked in at home and Zoom and all of these things that we use internally has played a role, but certainly it's been positive thus
far. All right, let's see, one last question, and then I think we'll close it out. We're reaching the bottom of the hour. And so someone asked about the conversion rate. And I know you talked in the conversion rate was about 90% in terms of the executives that reached out to you, but somebody's asking it in different terms, in terms of 30, 60, 90 days, how fast have they been able to be engaged and get involved and those kinds of things. Maybe from the time we reached out to the time we presented to that.
Yeah, great
question. I don't know what we're measuring that very clearly, but maybe we can speak to what our general feel is for that.
We're not, because primarily we're in that first 30 days, though we don't think of it in those terms. Again, we kept the ask so small that it was easy to turn this around very quickly. Once we had the meeting, and sometimes meetings with some of these VPs take a while to schedule. But once we had them, the follow-up meeting to the videos was sort of whenever we could get it scheduled. They're coming in and so forth. The real test I believe will come when the next ask comes along. Hey, Pride is coming up and we want to do a big event at HQ. Would you support that? Would you come? That sort of thing. That we don't know yet. You know, this is a program that's really on the runway. It's taking off. We're really optimistic about what this is, and we believe that as soon as a VP or any human being says on video, I support this community, you belong in my community, that the next time that we come and ask, that will resonate in their head in a different way than if we just came and asking for money. And that's, you know, fundamentally part of the goal of this. So you know, what does it look like in 90 days? We don't fundamentally know because we've not had any in-person events because of COVID. And so we're looking forward to finding out more about them.
So with that, come back next year. Hopefully we will be able to submit another workshop where we can really talk about the results of the Belonging campaign and talk about now what have we learned a year and a half later after putting this together. And so we'd be excited to see you. I'm not sure where the next summit is going to be. Maybe back to base. I don't know. I haven't heard. So let's hope that we can see you all next year. Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate the great feedback and the conversation in the chat. Several of you have asked about the presentation. I'll post it up on the files section within Pathful in the workshop so you can get access to it. You guys are all wonderful. Thank you for what you're doing within your companies as ERG leaders. The work we're doing is so important. And I just want to say to especially folks in smaller companies, you're not alone. We all belong. We're all doing this great work. And so feel free to reach out to any one of us. We'd be happy to answer any questions. So thanks for coming today. We appreciate everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody can hear us, but I'm going to hold on before I leave. Paul, you can shut down your presentation, but I want to copy the chat and learn my lesson from yesterday.
I copied it, Kate.
You got